Hello and welcome. We all worry. It's just part of being human, right? But what happens when that worry doesn't stop, when it just takes over? Today, we're going to look at chronic anxiety from a totally new angle. We're not just talking about it as a feeling, but as a force that can actually change how our brains work. So let's dive in and explore the hidden cost of worry. It all starts with a simple thought, like this one, something we can all relate to, right? This is from a client in an anxiety case study. And that last part, it doesn't stop there. That's everything. For some people, that single what if turns into a runaway train, spiraling into scenarios of failure and total catastrophe. This isn't just having a bad day. For millions of people, this is their daily reality. So, there's a clinical name for this experience, generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD. And the keywords here are excessive and uncontrollable. See, this isn't about the normal stress you'd feel before a big presentation. It's a chronic condition where your brain's worry mechanism is basically jammed in the on position, and it really starts to mess with your daily life. Okay, so we know GAD feels absolutely awful, but what is it actually doing to our ability to think? Well, it turns out this constant state of high alert isn't just an emotional thing. It has a real, measurable impact on our cognitive abilities. To figure this out, scientists compared a group of young adults who have GAD with a healthy control group. And they didn't just ask them how they were feeling. No, they used a whole battery of tests to measure specific brain functions. And the results, well, they're pretty fascinating and honestly, a little alarming. So this first chart is looking at something called omission errors, which is basically a fancy way of saying attention lapses. And as you can see, the group with GAD made way more of these errors. In the real world, what does this look like? Well, it's missing that one crucial detail in an email from your boss. Or it's completely zoning out while someone you love is talking to you. It's like your brain's focus is literally flickering on and off. And next up, we have cognitive flexibility. This chart shows perseverative errors. This happens when you get stuck on an old rule, even after you've been told the rules have changed. And again, the GAD group made way more of these mistakes. It's that mental equivalent of trying to use an old password over and over again. It's this kind of mental gridlock, an inability to easily pivot your thinking. And this third chart highlights another huge cost, processing speed. On tests that made them switch between different tasks, the GAD group was just slower. Think about it like the gears in your brain are grinding every time you try to shift from, say, writing an email to answering the phone. That transition just isn't smooth. It's slow, and it takes a ton of effort. So when you put all this data together, the picture becomes really clear. Chronic worry is like a massive drain on your brain's resources. It's like you're trying to run your life on a computer that has dozens of hidden programs running in the background, just eating up memory and slowing the whole system down. So this leads to a really big question. We've seen the effects, right? The attention problems, the mental gridlock, the slow processing. But what's actually causing all this? What's the engine driving what you could call this stuck thought syndrome? So why? Why does the simple act of worrying seem to hijack our mental hardware? Well, the answer lies in a concept that might be new to you, but it's really at the heart of this entire issue. And that term is perseverative cognition. Now, perseverate just means to repeat something over and over. So this is basically the mind getting stuck in a loop, replaying negative stuff from the past or rehearsing all the worst-case scenarios for the future. It's kind of like leaving your car's engine idling all night. You're not actually going anywhere, but you're burning a ton of fuel and causing a lot of wear and tear. This brings us to a really elegant idea called the perseverative cognition hypothesis. It's actually super simple. Okay, so a stressful thing happens. Let's say you have a tense meeting with your boss. Your body reacts. That's normal. But then the meeting ends. The stressor is over. But if you spend the next 5 hours replaying every word of that meeting in your head, your body acts as if the stress is still happening. It's the repetitive thought, not the event itself, that keeps the stress response going and causes all that long-term wear and tear. And the scale of this is just mind-blowing. One study found that people with GAD spend, on average, 310 minutes a day worrying. 310 minutes. That's over 5 hours. Every single day, 5 hours of that engine idling, of that prolonged stress response. When you hear that, all those cognitive costs we saw earlier, they suddenly make a lot more sense. Okay, so what can we do about this? If the problem is stuck thinking, how in the world do you get unstuck? Well, this is where a newer approach comes in, and it's called metacognitive therapy, or MCT, and it tackles this problem from a completely different direction. MCT proposes this really radical idea. It says, what if the problem isn't the first thought? The what if I fail the exam one? What if the real problem is what we believe about our own worrying? It's not about the thoughts themselves. It's about our relationship to our thoughts. This model from MCT kind of maps out the anxiety trap in a whole new way. Let's just walk through it real quick. It starts at the top with a trigger, that initial what-if thought. That leads to what they call type 1 worry, worrying about the exam itself. But then, and this is the crucial part, a second, more destructive thing kicks in. You start to have negative beliefs about the worry. And that's what leads to type 2 worry. Let's break that down. Type 1 worry is the trigger. What if I fail? But type 2 worry, or meta worry, is worrying about worrying. It's thoughts like, I can't control these anxious thoughts, or this anxiety is going to make me go crazy, or this has to be damaging my brain. This meta worry is what pours gasoline on the fire. It creates this vicious cycle that feels totally impossible to escape. So the key to breaking this whole cycle, according to this model, isn't to fight those initial thoughts. It's to change your relationship with the entire process of worrying itself. So how does metacognitive therapy actually work? Well, first, it directly challenges those meta-beliefs. Is your worry really uncontrollable? Is it really dangerous? Second, it helps you spot the coping strategies that actually make things worse, like trying to push thoughts away. The goal is to interrupt that looping, perseverative thinking and build a new, more flexible relationship with your thoughts, where they're just thoughts, not facts, not command. This is the big shift. The focus moves away from the content of our worries, the exam, the job, whatever it is, and moves to the process of our thinking. And this directly tackles those cognitive costs we saw earlier. The attention lapses, the mental gridlock, those aren't caused by the initial worry. They're caused by the exhausting process of worrying about worrying. By focusing here, we can start to reclaim that mental energy. And all of this leaves us with a final, really powerful question. For so long, we've tried to fight our anxious thoughts, to suppress them, to get rid of them. But what if that was never the answer? What if the key to mental freedom isn't having a silent mind, but having a mind that can watch its own storms pass by without believing it is the storm? Definitely something to think about.